Well, hello everyone, I'm back again for another update here. I'm currently in the Jefferson National Forest trying out my new, well not really new, my girlfriend found me this backpack for a thru hike I'm planning. I'm trying it out for the first time, and here's what it looks like. Let's get a good view here. So far, I feel like I barely even have it on. She really seems like she found a good pick, and it was only $3. She found it at a thrift store, and so far it looks like it's going to work out for me potentially. I mean, I'm going to hike several more miles with it. I have some gear in it to add some weight. And I stepped out of my front door, and 15 minutes later, here I am. As you can see, across the valley, Middle Mountain is right there, and Potts is behind it. There's a valley in between. And Peters Mountain is up that way. I also got a bicycle as well that I'm planning a long distance tour on it potentially. Big question is when. I still have my truck for sale. It still hasn't sold yet. However, my property in Maine, I did find a buyer for it on a rent-to-own, so I did receive a down payment for that. It wasn't a whole lot, but it's enough to at least sustain me a little longer, but we'll see what happens. Still haven't had to go back to work just yet, but we shall see. So this goes through the National Forest, gradually climbs up the side of Peters Mountain, comes out on Route 311 about a mile below where it crosses the top of the range. This is a very nice spot to train for a potential thru hike. There's so many options here. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do first, a thru hike or a bike tour. I'm still trying to figure that out. Hoping for next year or earlier if my truck sells, maybe even this year. If the truck sells and I can have the finances to do it this year, I will. If the truck doesn't sell, I have gotten it fixed up. It has a new inspection sticker on it. It's good to go. At least at the moment, it has nothing wrong with it. I have replaced the tires on it. It's DOT ready to be driven again at any moment. So if I need to go back to work, the truck is ready to go. And I can go out there with it to generate some more money to fund a hike with in the future, or a bike ride. I did do a 20+ mile ride up and down Potts Mountain several days ago. I feel I'm ready for either a tour or a thru hike. The bike ride involved climb over 2,000 feet in elevation, over 20 miles. I did it in 5 hours on some gravel, as well as pavement. So I feel if I could do that and not be sore the next day, I should be almost prepared to commence either a bike tour or a thru hike very soon here, as I've been riding every couple of days this winter to train and get in better shape for an endeavor. So this is my plans. Getting back into what I've been talking about in my previous videos here, Solar Cycle 25 continues to be comparable to 24 so far. The cosmic ray count is bounced almost back up to normal, which is what it did during 24 max as well. It kind of bounced back and forth like that. And it's doing that now. However, the sunspot count is over 170, which I question whether they're fudging the numbers to make it seem higher, because they want to disprove these people now that are claiming grand solar minimum is here. So they're overcounting on the sunspots. And what I want to do is research is, I'm going to look at try to find some images of the sun when it was more active during cycle 22, 23. Try to find an image that has 170 sunspots from back then and compare it to now and see if it looks like the image now or it looks a lot more active than now. I want to do that in the near future. So, the reason why I'm talking about Solar Cycle 25 is because if it turns out to be the same as 24, global cooling is going to continue. I know people that live in the eastern U.S. may find it hard to believe that global cooling is going on with the kind of winter that we've had here. But from a global perspective, many areas of the hemisphere and the world for that matter are shivering. Southern Hemisphere, Antarctica recorded its coldest temperature this early in the season. Australia and New Zealand have had an unusually cool summer this year. We're going into fall now down there. And the weather patterns here continue to hold on to being warm, because up until very recently, as I talked about in my previous videos, the MJO, they are shooting energy at certain regions in the tropics to encourage convection, to keep the MJO in a warm phase for the U.S. And that's what they've been doing all winter. That's why the airflow has been from the equator all winter. As I said in my last video, still has been. As a result, trees are blooming weeks earlier than usual in the eastern U.S. But it's very deceptive, because it's a manipulated weather pattern that's causing it. They're trying to keep the MJO in the warm phases all winter for the eastern U.S. The West, they kind of this year gave up on perpetuating the drought there for another season. Why California got inundated with snow in the last few weeks. Because in order to keep the weather warm in the east, somebody else is going to have to pay for it. And in this case, it was California. For some of that cold air, the Arctic came down over the Gulf of Alaska, and this air was so potent that it brought snow, tons of snow, to the mountains of Southern California, to where it's a critical situation. People are trapped. So, and right now, I recently looked at the sun shining through this overcast. I recently looked through on the worldwide satellite view, and Great Britain is going to be under the gun for cold. You got an air mass coming down almost from the North Pole, aimed straight at them. Coming down to the west of Scandinavia, right down straight for Britain. Of course, when they get hit with the cold and the snow from it, they're going to blame it on global warming, more extremes. In reality, global warming doesn't cause more extremes, it causes less extremes. You got less of a temperature difference between the poles and equator. It means less extremes in the weather overall. More extremes are caused by global cooling. They got it backwards. Plus we got a hurricane or cyclone out in the Indian Ocean off Mozambique. I've seen they're claiming it's the longest tropical weather system on record. Of course, they're going to try to attach that to global warming as well. In reality, I looked at a couple of the images. You can clearly see they're pumping it up with energy to keep it going from satellites. How can you tell that? You look at for the fireworks effect. If you see, especially on the infrared images, cloud top, that it looks like explosions are happening on the images. You know it's artificial. In nature, that doesn't happen. And what ties in with all of this global warming, they're trying to get everybody to convert over to electric for heat and for other things. I got talked into getting 2 heat pumps installed for $7,000. It cost me. Brand new heat pumps, 2 of them installed in my home, because for insurance purposes I needed to have a conventional type heating system put in. Well, my utility bills tripled after running them, and once it gets down below 40 degrees, it won't even hold the 70-degree setting inside. It starts to not keep up once it gets below 40 degrees, and that's with 2 of them running in the house. They run constantly. They use up tons of electricity. My bill skyrocketed. Finally, a few weeks ago, I just took the remotes to them and turned them both off. For the amount of heat you get, it is extremely expensive to run those things. For the amount of heat that they actually give out. When we got that cold snap back in December, it was 50 degrees in the house with both of them things going full blast when it got down to 0 outside. I keep reading articles that claim that they can keep up if it's cold out. These units I have, once it gets below 40 degrees, they can't hold on even to 70 degrees inside anymore. And this pack is wonderful. I barely even feel it so far. I have been going uphill since I walked out of the house. I barely even feel the weight on me. This pack is awesome so far. So they're trying to brainwash everybody into buying these units. If my electric use doubled and even tripled, imagine what that's going to do to the grid if everybody gets these things that they can't even keep up with. You'd have to install 5 or 6 of them in your house and have them all running at once in a cold spell to keep it comfortable inside. It makes no sense. I'm coming up over this rise now, and you can see straight ahead. That's where 311 goes up over Peters, right straight ahead there in that gap. And that's about an elevation of just over 3,000 feet above sea level. My house sits at 1,800. And there's Peters Mountain all along there. So what have I done for heat? Well, I've been burning wood, but since I have a coal stove, it's designed more for coal than for wood. I found a place that sells anthracite coal. And that stuff burns awesome. It keeps it 75 degrees in the house. Of course, there's an art to it. You have to put just the right amount of coal in accordance to the temperature. Set the air intake just right to keep it from getting too hot in the house. But I have never filled that stove up with coal. Most I have ever put in it is maybe 1/4 full, and it kept it 80 degrees in the house all night, and it was in the 30s outside, just from filling it up 1/4 of the way. So I guess there's my answers to what I'm going to use for heat. It does not even put out a puff of smoke when you burn it. And it puts out great heat, and it puts out probably 10 times more than electric does. The intensity of the heat. Electric heat makes no sense unless, I mean, those electric heaters I had put in, pretty much once it gets down below 40 degrees, the house gets freezing cold. I mean, I don't see any point in it. So I guess all I'm going to do with those is keep them off and claim the tax credit that the government should give me for them. And just keep them there for insurance purposes. But I'm probably not going to use them again, unfortunately. So that is going to be it for this video. I will be back again soon with another update.